o'clock. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. Let me have a look at the excitement of today and the various slides. So let's get cracking. Stephanie, if you could bring up the slides, please, and we'll have some fun with our usual screen sharing and non-screen sharing. My name's David Stringer-Lamar. I'm the managing director of a company called Fortis Consulting London. We get involved in international trade engagement, and I'm very pleased to say that includes the UK and Malaysia as well. And I have the honor of being the chair of the International Trade Investment Team here at the British Malaysian Society. I'm very pleased to be involved with this with our great friends and partners from the British Malaysian Chamber of Commerce as well. There's your title. Look at that. Malaysia Opportunities for UK SMEs. So as I'm moving away, I'm not ignoring you on purpose. I've got 3 screens here, trying to make sure that not too many things go wrong. We normally allow ourselves to make 18 mistakes. If you want to count them, we'll see how we go with that one. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of what we're doing in terms of the housekeeping today, this session is being recorded, so people who are not able to join us at the moment can see and share in the wisdom of our keynote speakers and our panelists. You'll see at the bottom down there the chat function. Lots of people kindly sharing where they're dining in from, what they're doing, something about their company or what you want to do. Whatever it is, put it in there, and remember to select, if you want it to go to everybody, panelists and all attendees. You'll see just on next to it is the Q&A function. So if you have a question at any time, do put it in there, because of course we have a good 20 minutes where we're going to grill our experts and get the information out of there that you wish. So we've already had some pre-submitted questions, but do put the questions in the Q&A. There's also a voting function in there, so you can vote the ones up that you particularly like. Make it as interactive as possible, and that will be very good indeed. May I have the next slide, please? So here at the busy BMS, British Malaysian Society Group, this is the rogues gallery, as it were, that are involved. So this certainly is not a one-person event. So you can see we have Ben, Gavin, Martin, Robin and Winnie all on the team. For those of you who are members of the British Malaysian Society or not yet, but will be coming soon, I am wearing the British Malaysian Society new ties. They're going fast. There's a few left, so do get in contact with us so you are ready. Well, not ready. You've already looked great at digital events, but you're ready once we move into hybrid events, or indeed, as all, thankfully, we're looking forward to it, into physical events as well. It's now my great pleasure and indeed my honor to be able to invite the chair of the British Malaysian Society, Maysim Lai, OBE DL, to address us. Maysim.
Thank you very much indeed, David. Greetings from London and a very, very warm welcome to you all. Let me start by a quote from Her Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Asia Pacific, Natalie Black, CBE. I'm delighted that today's inaugural meeting of the UK-Malaysia Joint Committee on Trade and Investment has agreed a program of cooperation in support of our shared ambitions to remove barriers to trade and create new opportunities for business. The UK and Malaysia enjoy a strong and healthy trade and investment relationship, which has potential for significant further growth, contributing to the prosperity of both countries. So it is in that context that the British Malaysian Society has organized the webinar this morning in conjunction with the British Malaysian Chamber of Commerce and MIDA. So BMS has been going for over 36 years, and we pride ourselves as the #1 go-to organization in the UK if you want to do business with Malaysia and with Malaysians in the UK. So why Malaysia? So Malaysia scores very highly on ease of doing business. It is also in ASEAN. And by setting up in Malaysia, you can have a strong base to expand into the rest of ASEAN. And also a very exciting development last November when Malaysia and 14 other countries, including all the ASEAN countries, China, New Zealand, Australia, Korea, Japan, signed the RCEP. This is one of the most exciting developments for world trade. Also, I think today is timely because of post-Brexit. The business people here are very keen to make connections and to develop markets in Malaysia and in ASEAN. And likewise, people in Malaysia are very keen to do the same with contacts and with businesses in the UK. I should just say that today's webinar is the first part of a two-part series that our international trade and investment team has organized. So our second part will be in September, when you will get an opportunity to hear from Malaysian SMEs who are interested in doing business in the UK. So a lot of countries place a lot of importance in the SME market. In the UK, SMEs form 99% of businesses here. And it's from developing SMEs that we have the growth in jobs and the growth in businesses and more prosperity for each country. So I hope you will enjoy the contributions from our expert panel this morning, and I look forward to speaking to you all later.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed, Chair Mei Sim Lai, for those remarks. And indeed, thank you for reminding us and informing the audience that this is indeed one of a two-part series, and we're looking forward to the follow-up in September. Thank you very much.
So while Stephanie puts on the slide, good morning, everyone. Hello from Malaysia, and good afternoon to my fellow speakers from Malaysia, as well as it's good to see there are some Malaysian participants from all the way from North and Penang and KL. So quickly, I know I only have 7 minutes, but David has already warned me, and I have 17 slides. So David, I only will pick some key points to share from the slides, and the slides can be distributed later for the audience benefit. So let's move on to the next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. Not this, the one on Malaysian. Okay, well, while the slides are being sorted, I'll just share. I think Mei Sim has nicely done an opening about Malaysia's position of being one of the top countries of ease of doing business. That was one of the things that I wanted to share. Secondly, in terms of giving an overview of Malaysia, I thought that it's good to share about Malaysia's strong focus on digital infrastructure and transformation. The Malaysian government issued Malaysia's digital economy blueprint that creates opportunities for global players. And there's also a continuous shift to knowledge and high-tech innovation-based economy. That creates opportunities for those exporters those companies are looking to export their products and services. Another point that Mei Sim mentioned, that Malaysia is I think one of the value propositions is strategically located in the heart of Southeast Asia and offers a cost-competitive location for investors and SMEs to start their operations. And I'm sure because I've heard from Maida's presentation before, very much. There is an initiative called Regional Representative Office, and more than 100 UK SMEs have successfully set up that, where there's an incentive from MIDA. So SMEs can opt to that route. And ASEAN, for example, if you set up in Malaysia as a regional hub, ASEAN is a home to 670 million consumers. So that's a strategic location. And Malaysia currently is the UK's second largest trading partner in ASEAN. Total bilateral trade between UK and total trade between UK and Malaysia is about £5 billion per year, and that normally fluctuates around that. It's either through Malaysia or from Malaysia, UK, and both governments, as Nasim said, they are, from our observation from the chamber, very committed to increase these numbers. So there are many initiatives going on by the government agencies as well on both sides, DIT to promote trade into Malaysia and the Malaysian Martrade to promote trade into UK. So my next slide, actually, Steph, would you go to the slide on why Malaysia? It is the slide before this. Okay, why Malaysia will be about, those of you who are familiar with Malaysia, I think you will agree when I say it's a vibrant business environment, market-oriented. Malaysia and UK has long historic relations. So people are used to, they see the value, they have affinity for British-made products and solutions. We have a well-developed financial system. I would always, being a part of the chamber, I see our government policies are very supportive, pro-business policies, a very responsive government to support investors. Similarly, the government agencies on hand working with us, to support investors, exporters into the country. And of course, I'm sure, there are various initiatives to support investment into Malaysia. We are very proud of our educated workforce. Talking about education, probably every other person in Malaysia would have had some form of UK education. Even our education system came from the UK education. So we are proud of our talented, young, educated workforce, multilingual. If you're looking at Malaysia to set up a hub here, and you have access, you have a multilingual talent who are able to speak in Mandarin, which is very important. And now more and more you see young people speaking Korean, learning how to speak Korean and Japanese. So that will be the value that Malaysia can bring if you're looking to set up here as a regional hub. And of course, if you have been to Malaysia, you will see we have a developed infrastructure. If any questions, you can ask later. I'll move on in the interest of time. So this slide, next slide, please, Steph. So this shows you a blend of UK companies in Malaysia. There are many, many more. And
3 minutes, cursory reminder, please.
Yes. Okay, move on, please. Okay. Many of the Malaysians will be wondering, how is Malaysia surviving? What the message I wanted to give you is, if you are in Malaysia now, it seems like businesses are open to operate. And the good news is that, even though our borders are closed, we are slowly opening up. And I think Maida, Rashida, you will share about the overseas business traveler. So if you are a business person and you want to come into Malaysia to do business, to look at investment opportunities, there are pathways now opened by MIDA. So in terms of, we had a good news where World Bank, projects us as 6% GDP growth for Malaysia. So Malaysia is surviving. Of course, we are trying to balance, like any other country, balancing the pandemic and economic recovery, I would say. Next slide, please, quickly. Next slide. Okay, so how can the BMCC, or how do we support UK businesses in Malaysia? Next slide. Okay, about the chamber, if you're not familiar with the chamber, we are a bilateral trade organization. The British Chamber has been in Malaysia for more than 58 years. We have been very active, one of the long-standing chambers. As a chamber, we provide networking, business and B2B engagement. We create opportunities for our members and UK businesses to brand and profile themselves. We are also an industry voice to engage with the Malaysian government. And last but not least, has a official delivery partner of the UK government in Malaysia, the DIT, Department for International Trade. We offer trade services for UK exporters. Next slide, please.
1 minute, please.
Okay. As the delivery partner, you can see we support into B2B matching, one-to-one clinics and all. And I also need to share about DIT's role, which how we divide our role between DIT and us at the chamber. DIT focus on a lot of sector campaigns. They also work on trade policy and market access. Maysin mentioned about it. About the joint working group where we're looking at 6 areas to support trade into Malaysia, and also from the Malaysian government side to support trade into UK. Next slide, please. I would like to go quickly to the slide on the opportunities for UK businesses. Next slide. So there are a few sectors that we see potential opportunities for UK businesses. 5 of them are under the DIT campaign sectors, which is technology, education, health, infrastructure, defense and security. And from the chamber side, we look at food and drinks, retail, smart manufacturing, advanced manufacturing. And one thing that's been getting a lot of interest here is that on renewables and green technology. And very often, there's opportunities like Malaysian companies looking to understand new technologies, looking for partners, looking for looking for new UK products, high-tech solutions. So if you have any questions, we can take it on later at the Q&A on specific needs of each sector. So I will end with the last slide, which is the next one on market tips. Can we go to the market tips? For example, I think very importantly, UK SMEs, if you are coming into Malaysia, make sure you consult the right parties to support your expansion. Either it's the DIT or the BMCC as your delivery partner, because we have been supporting UK businesses into Malaysia for the last, since last 7 or 8 years. We understand what the market is asking. So if you speak to us, we are able to guide you to the government agencies, the right stakeholders, and tell you what model will best fit to operate in this country. So with that, David, I hope I will hand back to you. If there's any questions, we can take it on during the Q&A session.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Rishi, let me get on here. Excellent. And thank you for stepping in there. Really interesting presentation. And thank you for giving us all that information about it. And I'm sure people will take that on board. BMCC there to help make business happen in Malaysia and between Malaysia and the United Kingdom.
I am a former, for those who don't know me, I'm a former Director of Trade and Investment here in Malaysia. When I finished my posting here, I took a decision to stay on, to start my own business, and it's worked out pretty well. I also sit on the boards of Prudential Malaysia here, and Jardine's Cycle and Carriage, which is one of the biggest Mercedes dealerships here in Malaysia. I also work very closely with Jennifer, as I'm a board member of the British Malaysian Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a member of Nottingham University's Asian Advisory Council as well. So I keep myself pretty busy. It's been a bit challenging during the COVID period, but we keep going. Why did I stay on? Robin, are you still on silent? Can we hear you?
Let's stay with you, Tony. Then once you finish, we'll move
on
over to
Robin. Well, I know.
Yeah, why did you stay on?
A lot of people are asking me that. Why did I stay on in Malaysia? I mean, I'm a career civil servant, so to step out of the civil service, I didn't retire. I resigned, and to step into the world of the private sector was a pretty terrifying prospect, really. But I have to say, and I've said this to others, there is probably nowhere else in the world, possibly exception of the UK, I suppose, which is my home, but where I would have dared do anything like that. And I've been through the process of establishing my immigration status here. I went through the process of establishing my company here. It's a wholly foreign-owned company here. It's not a Malaysian-owned company. And by and large, there are a few hurdles to jump over, but by and large, it went very well. As Jennifer was saying, we got an awful lot of support from various agencies, including MIDA and including InvestKL, and also in terms of the immigration through MyExpat, and it went pretty smoothly. There's plenty of private sector services around to help you set up. It was easy, really, accountancy services for a whole range of people. So you can go from the big four if you want to, or you can go down to local accountancy services. All very, very good. The regulatory regimes here are very well developed, very well set up. And I've now seen them operating really not just for my own small company, but actually through the range of companies that I sit on as a board member. So, you know, in terms of the environment for doing business here, I would say it's as good as anywhere, frankly. I've had very few real challenges. English is clearly spoken by most people certainly in Kuala Lumpur and certainly in the major cities. And so there's very little issue there. But of course, if you're going to move into a country like this, you want to try and learn the local languages. But I must admit that's somewhere I badly failed, but never mind. And yes, I mean, you know, the whole process was very, very simple. So, I can only say this as a former director of trade and investment here, but also as a head of Asia Pacific for Inward Investment for many years. I took a very conscious choice to stay in Malaysia because if you look around Asia and ASEAN, it offers so many advantages in terms of its, the fact that its infrastructure is very well developed, and I need to talk about infrastructure in its widest sense. But also for somebody coming from the UK, it's actually very, very easy. Lots of people speak English. Obviously, the legal system is based quite strongly on what we have in the UK. The regulatory system, obviously, it differs in parts, but by and large, it's very easy to follow, very easy to understand. So honestly, speaking as an old ex-civil servant who went into the private sector, I've actually felt very, very comfortable here, and it's been a very rewarding process, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 4 years. Now, I'm going to say, I think I just heard Robin. So did I hear Robin then?
No, that's fine, Tony. Thank you very much. You did very well. And I just want to pick up on one thing, because Jennifer kindly mentioned that, of course, we shouldn't just look at Malaysia as Malaysia, but also a gateway to ASEAN. You've just mentioned ASEAN. Have you got any comments on that?
Well, I mean, ASEAN is a fascinating region, really, and it's hugely diverse. When you think you've got sort of Singapore, and then you've got, am I allowed to mention Myanmar, Burma now? I don't know, but there's a huge range of markets here, and the opportunities, across them will range in ease of access, if you like. But there's something there to suit everybody, and that's really what's very good about it. It's there's opportunities everywhere, and the good thing is that in Malaysia, there are organisations here. Dare I mention the UK ASEAN? The ASEAN Business Council. There's lots of organisations here that have got connections into all the ASEAN markets in the private sector, and of course, working through the British Malaysian Chamber, we've got the network of British chambers around the region as well. So there's a fabulous network that you can access from Malaysia. And a lot of people will say, oh, well, if you're going to go somewhere, you should go to Singapore. Well, that does work for some. There's no question of that. But as a small business, quite frankly, I looked at the options for that, and it was pretty easy to come down with an answer that said it should be Malaysia. You know, the costs in Singapore are quite scary, frankly.
Right.
And as I say, you know, I've found living in and working and doing business in Kuala Lumpur and in Malaysia very straightforward. The links to all the other ASEAN countries are very good, very strong. COVID aside, obviously, which has slowed things down a little bit. And the understanding of a lot of the ASEAN countries does exist here. So you can get the advice you need to do business in those other markets. And I don't, speaking from my own knowledge, I don't actually think that's true in all of the other ASEAN markets. It's far more difficult to kind of get the sort of access and understanding of the region in some of those other ASEAN markets.
Terrific.
So
Thank
I think
you.
it's a great place to be for ASEAN as a region. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you certainly for concentrating squarely on SMEs. Very much appreciate that. Lots of good points in there. Now we're going to give Robin Stevens. Are you with us?
I hope so, David. Yes.
You
Apologies
are.
for the.
Good. And then we'll try and receive you after that.
Thank you. I've just changed devices, but anyway. So thanks, David. Thanks to Tony, who's been a great support for us. I think in working in Malaysia for the last 10, 15 years. So many thanks for that. I'll just run through briefly some of the incentives there, which are available to both Malaysian but also international companies trading in and investing in Malaysia. And I'll keep it quite short because it's very detailed, and certainly there's a lot of information out there from MEDA, from the BMCC, from ourselves. So there's lots of information for people in particular sectors. But there are a lot of tax incentives. There are some tax incentives around investment, where you can get up to 60% of capital expenditure set against your income. There's pioneer status, which is very important, which means you can get between 70 and 100% of your profits relieved against tax. There are investment tax allowances as well, which are very important based upon tax relief linked to capital expenditure in the region, and that has wide application. And also, there's been a scheme that's been around for a long time. It's called MSC Malaysia. Prior to that, it was the multimedia tax relief. They give you between 5 and 10 years of tax reliefs in relation to companies involved in high tech. All the other reliefs are available to, I would say, the majority of companies involved in manufacture, servicing as well. But obviously, specialist advice is required depending on where you are and what sector you're in. But certainly, there are enough tax incentives there to make it very attractive for SMEs to come into the country. There are also incentives which are enhanced in certain regions. So, for example, there's the Iskandar region down in the south towards Singapore. There's a northern economic region, an east coast region. There's an incentive also in East Malaysia, in Sabah, in Sarawak, and the Sarawak incentives are based largely around renewable energy. And also, as Jennifer mentioned, I think one thing that we've noticed in the last six to 9 months is the increasing interest in renewables and green technology. And certainly there are very attractive tax reliefs and tax incentives around investment in those sectors as well. But on top of that, there are reliefs and incentives around acting as an international holding company, around acting as a principal hub, involved in Islamic fund management, looking at the TRX financial district in KL, and also around as you might expect, the petroleum sector. So to say that KL is attractive, or rather Malaysia is attractive in terms of inward investment, I think is a understatement. I guess lots of investments has got into the KL and the Klang region. Having said that, there are very attractive areas and regions around Penang, around Johor in the south, and there are particular investment groups there and investment associations, Invest Penang, Invest Johor, which has been rebranded, and of course Invest KL. And I think the thing I'd like to finish with saying is that for us, Malaysia has been a very attractive and a very good place to do business. I've been doing work in reverse almost, working more with Malaysian companies coming out of the country and coming to the UK for funding. But I think the thing that has struck me in terms of the ones that have been most successful are the companies which have obviously been based in Malaysia, but have used Malaysia very much as a stepping stone to expand into the region and into ASEAN. And I think that works in reverse. So companies who are looking at coming into the ASEAN region, looking at a first point of contact. Obviously, the Malaysian market is attractive in its own right for lots of reasons, but it's also a very sound stepping stone for further expansion elsewhere. So that's a very brief summary. As I say, there's lots of information out there about how attractive some of these incentives are, and obviously we'd be very happy to answer more detailed questions after the event. So I hope that's a summary. Hopefully we'll set up the topic for both Dario and Rashida, who now seems to be in contact with us.
Okay, Robin, thank you ever so much for that. You spoke about tax incentives, also really interesting for inward investment into Malaysia, and you carried on the theme of Malaysia, not just for Malaysia, but also as a gateway into, as you put it, stepping into ASEAN. And obviously, as behind me, we have the City of London. I was pleased that you mentioned about Islamic fund management as well. So thank you very much for that.
Yes, David, please.
Great. So what I'm interested in, and talking with some of the people beforehand, I'd like to know, why is Malaysia an attractive jurisdiction for setting up a business? What's so good about it, Dario?
Yes, well, I guess we all in different ways have already replied to this question and addressed the issue. So what I will bring to this discussion is my point of view. So I've been in Asia since 2003. My background is the background of a lawyer and then a manager in a corporate services provider firm. I've lived in several places in Asia, in Southeast Asia, in China, in Hong Kong, Singapore, and so on and so forth. So from my perspective, in all the years of my professional career, I've always addressed clients and potential investors, dividing Asia in two areas and the jurisdictions into two macro areas. So some countries are jurisdictions which I would call destination jurisdictions, or jurisdictions where you go for production, outsourcing your production, creating lower cost production facilities, or because there is a market that you want to attack and where you want to expand. On the other hand, there's another category of jurisdictions which I used to call crossroads jurisdictions. And these are places where investors will find trading hubs, will find a juridical environment which is friendly towards setting up structures or setting up holdings. And typically a crossroad jurisdiction would be a place like Singapore or a place like Hong Kong, because they do actually comply with these requirements. They're common law jurisdictions, trading hubs, and so on and so forth. A destination jurisdiction would be China, would be Indonesia, for example. Well, I think Malaysia does not belong just to one of these two categories. Malaysia is quite unique because it can be a destination jurisdiction where you go and set up your factory, your production facilities. It is a market, albeit not huge. It is an important market, but it is also a crossroad jurisdiction. It has the characteristics of a crossroad jurisdiction. So we will look into these. In a summary, Malaysia is a common law jurisdiction. It has a large investment treaty network. What is an investment treaty? An investment treaty is a treaty between two countries where they agree to protect their mutual investments. And this is very important, because if from Malaysia you go and set up a factory in another ASEAN country or another Asian country, you know that you are protecting your investment by the investment treaty. So the third party government cannot just go and dispossess your land without any protection, just to give you an example. It has a policy to attract foreign investments and skilled foreign talent. So Rashida of MIDA has put in place historically policies to attract in specific sectors investments into Malaysia. Foreign talent is also attracted into Malaysia because it's a beautiful place to live. You can actually have fun. So also young and talented tech professionals, for example, find Kuala Lumpur very exciting, and the cost of life, something that was already mentioned by Tony and previous speakers, is much lower than jurisdictions like Hong Kong and Singapore. So all in all, I think it's a very good option for foreign talents in Asia to move and develop their skills.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for that, Dario. And good of you to mention the lifestyle bit and having a bit of fun as well, because it can't be all work, 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 can it? Indeed.
Absolutely.
I'm very interested you talk about a destination jurisdiction, but here obviously a crossroads jurisdiction. So far, we've heard from our speakers all about ASEAN and Southeast Asia. So what's your view on Malaysia, or setting up in Malaysia as a kind of springboard into Southeast Asia, Dario?
Yes, I think that because of all the characteristics that we have just mentioned, the double taxation agreements, investment treaty, and the common law framework, Malaysia is actually a fantastic place where you start your activity and then you set up further subsidiaries. Let's say you want to go to China, you want to go to Indonesia. For several reasons, as Tony was saying, you have the know-how, you have the people that know about those other jurisdictions. You have the double taxation agreements, which will make it convenient to set up your holding structure in Malaysia. You will have the investment treaties. You will put in between your headquarters in the UK and maybe a riskier jurisdiction, like for example in Indonesia or other jurisdictions which have some political instability. You will put in the middle a holding structure, which is always useful and interesting when you are structuring more than one investments into Asia. So my suggestion is always start in Malaysia, start your real operations because you need structure, you need substance. But once you are established, then you can easily springboard and set up other subsidiaries in other countries.
Awesome. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I'm very much aware of the time, so we've talked about all the good bits. What are some of the challenges, Dario, that may exist?
Well, there are some, when you set up a presence like a company, there are some local requirements. For example, you need to have a local director, a local company secretarial officer, but these things can be addressed by providers. So there are providers that can give you the service if you don't have readily available a director, a trusted director to put in the board. I would say the second challenge, especially now in a COVID scenario, is the immigration side. So it can take some time to obtain the immigration permits to bring your foreign managers inside. But I think with the correct preparation and correct timing, so if the company at the UK level sets out the correct timeline, this will not be an issue. You just need to be aware that it takes some time to obtain immigration permits. Last but not least, opening a bank account is becoming a bit more challenging than it used to be in the past, but I would say that is the same for Singapore, is the same in Hong Kong, is the same more or less everywhere, because the banking environment and the banking industry has changed significantly, and compliance is now a major factor in opening a bank account. So again, proper planning, just give yourself time to bring in new people, time to open the bank account. It will probably take 1 to 2 months.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed for your, Dario, for your expert comments in that area. I think we're building up a nice rounded picture of it. So thank you. Also, thank you to the people who put in the Q&A. So we now have some questions there as well. I've already got a massive sheet as well for later, and do vote. There's some voting going on in the Q&As as well. So put it in there. We're now going to go back live to our rock star Rashida, and we're going to see where we are on this one. So Stephanie, are you ready, willing, and able to share some slides with us? There we are, Rashida.
Finally. Sorry, everybody, for the very technical glitch that happened.
All's good.
Dario has covered some of the topics that I wanted to cover, but that's fine. I'll just go over it all over again. Just for those who don't know about MIDA, we are the Malaysian government's Central Investment Promotion Agency for the development of the manufacturing and services sector in Malaysia. Next step. These are the services that we provide, from promotion to implementation of projects in Malaysia. So for promotion, as listed down, those are the things that we cover: roundtable meetings, meeting with companies, we arrange visits to potential locations, and we also evaluate all the manufacturing license, tax incentives, expatriate posts, import duty exemptions, representative regional offices, and principal hub. And once the projects are established in Malaysia, we handhold projects to implement their projects. As long as they're operating in Malaysia, MIDA is there to help. If they have any problems, any issues during their operations in Malaysia, there is a dedicated division like an ombudsman to help them solve whatever problems they have on the ground. Next. There are 3 steps, basically, options for investors to come to Malaysia. If they don't have any entities or affiliations in Malaysia, they're new, they can come in to set up a representative office or regional office or a sales office. And they can also, if they have already an established entity in Malaysia, they can come in as a principal hub or operational HQ. This is a bigger one in the sense that these are like regional and global businesses and operations to manage, control, and support the key functions of the company. And the third step, if they are very well aware of what the investment climate in Malaysia is, and they have already entities or affiliates already in Malaysia, they can come straight in to operate or to set up their own production facility. They can also set up an R&D competence center or even a training center. Next. This is what it means by setting up a representative office in Malaysia. They are eligibility, the eligibility criteria would be like RM 300,000 Malaysian operational expenditure per annum, or USD 75,000 or so, and it should be financed by funds emanating from sources outside Malaysia. And expatriates will be considered for managerial and technical posts, but this entity is not allowed to be engaged in any trading, including export and export businesses, or any form of commercial activities. The activities allowed are on the right side: gathering and analysis of information, feasibility studies, planning or coordination of business activities, and the rest. Next. These are currently the UK's regional offices in Malaysia. These are the names of some British companies that already, more than 100 companies from the UK have been approved for representative office today. Next. Next. Thanks. The growth areas that we are promoting still in Malaysia, these are like promoted products and activities that we continue to promote. Next. Our ongoing focus is to target quality investments. What it means is those are the elements that they must be high value added. They have strong linkages to projects, the skills intensive. They are also providing high income jobs, and predominantly they are export oriented, high technology, capital intensive, R&D, and they have a GNI impact to the economy, and they are also knowledge intensive. For the manufacturing sector, we are focusing on the E&E, machinery and equipment, chemical, medical devices, aerospace, and some other sectors which include automotive, transport, textiles, and so on. The E&E is the leading industry in Malaysia manufacturing sector, contributing significantly to our exports and employment. And while at the same time, the machinery and equipment industry is also one of the key areas for growth and development, focusing on high value added and high technology M&Es. Yeah. And for the services, we are promoting investments in logistics, hotel and tourism, education and training. As you all well know, there are many education entities of UK in Malaysia. We also promote green technology, ICT services, and more of late is on medical tourism. Okay, next. Our achievements so far, this next. investments in manufacturing. This is the 2020 figures of last
3
year.
minutes, please.
All right. In 2020, contrary to the COVID situation and all that, we managed to garner about 1,000 plus manufacturing projects with investments and with, what is the number, 90 over billion investments. And it's more than the one that we achieved in 2019. And our domestic direct investment increased by 22.6%, while FDI increased by 3.9% vis-a-vis investments achieved in 2019. And those are the major investments that we got in 2020, predominantly from UK is Smith & Nephew with a big investment into Malaysia. Next, thank you. In terms of top investors in Malaysia, we are happy to note that there is a resurgence of British investments into Malaysia after a while. It has always been consistently US, Japan, China, Germany, and all that. But lately, we are seeing, encouraging investments coming from the UK, especially Smith & Nephew, most recently in 2020. Next. And these are the testimony of over 5,000 companies in Malaysia. Many of the prominent manufacturing companies are already in Malaysia. Next. These are the regional operations. Likewise, many of the global brands or global companies are also established in Malaysia. Next. In terms of international standing, this is from rating agencies. These are like testimonies. For example, for the recent World Bank 2020 report ranks Malaysia number 12 in ease of doing business. In protecting investors, IP is very important to us. We
1 minute, please.
Yeah, okay. And the rest, as you can see from the slide, next. And this is what I wanted to highlight, if you can bear with me. The one-stop center that we welcome visitors, business travelers into Malaysia. I will show you some visuals. Yeah. Next. Welcoming investors, keeping you safe. These are the one-stop center that you can come into Malaysia. We follow Singapore actually, that without quarantine, if you come 14 days, within 14 days, under strict SOPs, you provide your itinerary and we will facilitate the business visits of companies coming into Malaysia. Next. The rest are visuals. And if you have any more questions, you can do so after this. Next. This is the testimony from Short Glass that used this one-stop business BTC, Business Traveling Center, quite recently. They were the first visitors to arrive under this ticket. Next. That's me. So if you have any questions, you're most welcome to do so after this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Rashida. Certainly worthwhile waiting for. So we got there lots of useful information in there. So thank you very much, and good to hear about that business travel scheme.
Yes.
As well. Thank you. So now we have a story to be shared with us from a successful company entering Malaysia. So Richard Carrick. Richard.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I guess this this feels quite a natural point, given the various different parts of feedback and sort of information that's been given about launching in Malaysia, to give you a little bit of a story about myself and about LiftSmart. So I'm Richard Carrick and I'm the COO for LiftSmart. And LiftSmart recently has launched in Malaysia. So a lot of what everybody's saying today is very relevant to the experiences that we've had over the past 12 to 14 months since we first signed a contract to launch in Malaysia. To just give you a very sort of brief 15-20 seconds on LiftSmart itself. So LiftSmart is a business that's in the medical industry. We provide digital health assessments to businesses. So it's a B2B focused business model. We've operated in the UK successfully for 4 years, and through one of our key partners, a large insurance provider, we were given an opportunity to launch in Malaysia and signed a contract to do so in December 2019. So, you know, the past sort of 12 to 14 months has been, you know, us trying to launch in Malaysia and trying to navigate through a lot of what everybody's been talking about today. And you know, there's been some things that definitely I can resonate with, and some, you know, really, really strong experiences that we've had, and some challenges too. I think, I guess, the you know, obviously the first one overlaying everything has been the fact that we tactfully decided to launch 2 to 3 months just prior to COVID, which meant that actually we went through quite a unique process, really, of launching a business internationally completely remotely. So myself and the founder of LiveSmart, a guy called Alex Heaton, we spent the sort of first 2 to 3 months very much doing desk research around the Malaysian market, you know, a lot more of the kind of things that you can do from a remote perspective. So things like, you know, the finance and legal setup, you know, various different things, for example, like advertising job roles and shortlisting candidates. We were very luckily able to get out to Kuala Lumpur in sort of late January, early February in 2020. And we used that as a bit of a crash course to understand, you know, a few more specific things like office space, like trying to actually select candidates and so forth. I think from our perspective, we then came back to the UK and launched the business in kind of April 2020, pretty much through the, you know, the critical first wave of COVID. But what I would say is that sort of process of actually launching in Malaysia has been pretty straightforward. A lot of what everybody said today, you know, the infrastructure that's out there, I think a lot of the things that Tony mentioned really resonate around, you know, the ease of things like language. You know, our product very much, whilst it's localized, it actually, you know, is pretty much a replica of the UK product. Malaysian market's facing very similar challenges from a health perspective that we have here in the UK. And we've been, you know, enormously lucky to come across some great connections and, you know, people that have been, you know, like the BMCC, that have been willing to kind of help us, you know, understand the specifics around the market. Equally, you know, there's the access to talent. I think the team that we've got in Malaysia, so we have a team of 5 people now full-time working on our Malaysian business, all locals to Malaysia. You know, the actual talent level out there and the qualifications of people has been tremendous, really. So we've had great success in that area. I think some of the difficulties that we've had, and I guess this is kind of a sort of perhaps a slightly strange point to make, but I think almost the ease of launching in Malaysia that it gives you, it maybe gives you a false sense of security of that it is still a different market and it still does have different characteristics, and, you know, the actual, you know, the typical Malaysian consumer is still different to the UK one. And I think, you know, that's definitely some of the learnings that we've had, and that's been particularly challenging from a COVID perspective, is not being able to be in the market, see how people interact with our products, see how suppliers, you know, and businesses that buy our services onboard them and use them and interact and communicate with them. Not having that visibility as we would do in the UK has been quite challenging, and there are definitely nuances and localized needs that are in Malaysia that can be masked over the fact that it's actually quite a relatively straightforward country, I think, to launch into. So as I say, you know, we provide digital health assessments. We've got some great businesses and clients that we work with at the moment out there, Grab, JX Nippon, a few others that are fantastic clients. And so it's been a really, really successful first 14 months.
Excellent, Richard. Thank you ever so much for sharing that, and obviously wish you every success. And I'm very pleased, obviously, you're engaging with Jennifer and the team at BMCC. And well done launching internationally remotely. So there must be a Queen's Award somewhere waiting for you once it all ramps up and everything comes wonderfully well. And I like that bit about it's similar, but it's different. So I think that was a very important point to make. So thank you very much for sharing your stories there. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we have lots of questions. There's 8 in the Q&A there. I got 23 in front of me, so I'm going to group them all together a little bit and see how we go. But let me pull out what's at the top of the question up here. So I'm going to go for this one. How can a professional services or consulting firm enter Malaysia? So it's not selling widgets, it's not manufacturing. How can a professional consulting firm enter Malaysia? Services. Who would like to lead us off? I can see you all. Anyone put a hand up, scratch their nose? Who wants to go for it? Richard just scratched his nose, but I'm not sure he wants to go for that one. Jennifer, have you got anything on that one? A consulting firm, professional services firm, how best first steps to get into Malaysia?
Okay. My point of view would be, it depends on what kind of services, because if you are in the legal profession, it's a bit more trickier because the rules here are a bit more tricky. That's one of the areas that the working group on with DIT and MITI is working on. But from normally what we do is that we understand the service that you're trying to provide, and the easy route will be to look for a partner instead of going directly, depending on, it all depends on the product, the services that you're trying to offer. If it's a niche one, you can go into direct to the customer that you're looking for. It depends on your credentials. It depends on a lot of, we need to know what is the services about. But very often, you know, to enter a market like Malaysia, which has a lot of services in place, some of the services are, some of the offerings may be already, you know, people already aware about it. So it's looking for a right partner to work with. So that is my two cents worth, I would say.
Very kind. Thank you very
Maybe
much.
Tony would like to say something here. Yeah,
Tony is
in
specifically saying,
services.
"Don't ask me. I can see behind
I
the
was
screen."
afraid you were going to say that, Jennifer.
Because he's in
No,
the
look,
service line.
I can't dispute anything you just said. I mean, I think probably I'd just repeat the point that I made when I was speaking earlier, which is that actually the kind of, you know, certainly the business service environment here is quite well developed. So I think, you know, if you're going to come in as a specialist or some sort of consultancy, you do need to do your homework quite carefully in terms of what's already here. You know, but other than that, I think everything Jennifer said is absolutely right. You know, you just need to have a proper, careful look at the market, and obviously the chamber can really help with that.
Great, thank you very much. I've got a very specific question here. Do you see KL developing as a hub for financial technology? Any thoughts on fintech?
Take that one. Can I take
Please?
that one? Just because
Yes,
I was wondering about that, and as I mentioned earlier, I sit on the board of Prudential Malaysia here, which is pretty big and very well established. The financial services sector here is very well developed. Again, it's a very good mix of local and foreign providers, very competitive and very well regulated. But the one thing that it hasn't been so much, and perhaps others would argue me, but in my view, has been terribly tech savvy or tech oriented. But my goodness, that has changed with the COVID pandemic. The drive to technology now in the financial services sector, and I'm talking specifically about the insurance sector, is huge. And so, you know, if there is an area where people or companies want to have a look, I would very much recommend this particular area as worth investigating. Because, I mean, Prudential is a very big company, but I would say probably 40% of the time we spend in board and committee meetings is discussing technology and how we're implementing it, what the new technologies are. It is really a major opportunity, but it needs to be jumped on quick because it's moving very fast.
Thank you. I've got
David,
yes,
can I
Jennifer?
just add? Definitely, fintech is a campaign area for DIT, and if anyone's interested, please do reach out to us.
Great, thank you. And there's another specific one here on technology. What is the cost of tech talent in Malaysia compared to other countries in the region? What's the cost of tech talent? It's gone a bit quiet.
Well,
Richard, have you got any views on this? I mean,
Richard
you're the man on the ground there employing 5 people. Richard, do you know Malaysia versus anywhere else? Thailand, Indonesia, etc.?
To be honest, I mean, I can't give you a clear answer on that, actually. The reason being is so that we haven't actually hired tech roles in Malaysia at present. Okay. So we've got more operational roles. What I do know, I think more generally, so certainly, for example, a comparison to the UK, I think, you know, from a tech perspective, we did look at that, and you know, you're looking generally at kind of about half the cost of the UK from a tech talent point of view. I'm not 100% sure how that stacks up against Singapore and Thailand, presumably slightly less, but yeah, okay. Not 100% clear on that.
That's fine, thank you. Anybody want to do that, or I can move on?
I'd only say, just add something, Richard, David, briefly, that this kind of reflects what Dario was saying earlier, actually. Malaysia is kind of, it's in a nice place, really, because it sits in the middle between services and manufacturing. And I think in the past, you might have said that there was a problem of the availability of tech talent here, but that's easing as far as I can tell. You know, my sense is that cost-wise, it's going to be somewhere in the middle too. It's not going to be the cheapest market you're going to get, but what you are going to find is probably there's more good talent here now than I think there was perhaps even when I first arrived 10 years ago.
Great, thank you.
But David, just to give a short comparison with one of his closest neighbors, I would say that the cost is roughly the half of what you would have to pay in Singapore for a good tech talent.
Right. Thank you, Dario, for that. Here's a nice specific one. How would we go about starting the export of livestock and meat and fresh products to Malaysia? Is that specific enough for anybody? Livestock, meat, fresh products from the UK to Malaysia. Any top tips? Or is this a contact us later? Okay, I think Jennifer's reaching for the button.
Well, I was going to say, Jen, do you want to answer that? I mean,
okay.
The only thing go on, Jen, you say something, and then I'll see if there's anything to add.
I think maybe you wanted to say beef is still not allowed into Malaysia from UK, but livestock in terms of seafood, we are supporting. We are working with 1 or 2 providers into Malaysia. So if anyone's interested, you know, we can have a conversation, a follow-up conversation on more on that. Yes.
Oh, right. So this is seafood from the UK already going to Malaysia?
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Because we've got an enormous problem in the UK trying to get seafood into the EU. So obviously that's far too close, but we're okay getting to Malaysia. Well, that's a positive news story there indeed. You heard it here first on the BMCC news channel this morning. Okay, on to the next one. So tourism. What are opportunities for SMEs here in the UK to get involved with tourism in Malaysia? Asked by our good friend of the team, Martin Barrow. Looking around the screen, any tourism experts? It's all gone quiet. Martin's not going to like this. Who wants to talk about tourism? Robin Stevens, you've been to Malaysia lots of times. What do you think the benefits are for tourism in Malaysia for UK companies?
Thanks, David. Well, I suppose it's difficult to talk currently, is it, because we've got obviously the impact of COVID. But generally, I think it's huge opportunities. There's I think historically there's the level of tourism from the UK and Europe has been very large in Malaysia, not just the Peninsula Malaysia, but also into East Malaysia as well. I think, but realistically, I don't think we'll be looking until probably mid 2022 before we really start to see things moving on. I think locally, most Malaysians are taking holidays at home, and I think most Brits and Europeans are as well. But I think there's no reason why, as we get to the middle of 2022, when the vaccinations have hopefully been effective in most of the region, that the UK can't start to make inroads into the region and vice versa. It's a safe place to get to. It's cheap. It's good value. And again, as we said with business, once you're there, it's a very good place to investigate and explore the rest of the region.
Thank you very much indeed. So I'm very much aware of the time, but there's an interesting one here in the Q&A. It's got some votes. What is the best way to look for businesses for sale in Malaysia? Any recommended websites, etc.? So if somebody wants to buy a business in Malaysia, where do they find out what's on offer?
I think, sorry, David, just to start, I mean, there are a number of business brokers in Malaysia. A number of the mid to larger firms of accountants would have corporate finance teams who would be marketing companies as well. Although in truth, most companies, the best way to find a company really is to carry out some research yourself. Most people advising on the sale of companies don't usually post them on a website. It's a case of really making investigations of the sector and seeing who might be for sale. But there's no doubt there's a very active corporate finance and M&A infrastructure in the region. I would speak to start to speak to some of the larger accounting firms, some of the M&A consultancies just to make certain that people know you're looking. And then when they find things that might be attractive, they will probably contact you. But it's not quite as easy as going onto a website and seeing what's for sale. That's probably not the best way to buy or sell. But if a person concerned wants some more information, I'd be very happy to talk to them separately and maybe give us some pointers.
Excellent, awesome. Thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to ask for one last here, push my time on the on your expertise. Is there a particularly burdensome bit or a difficult piece of legislation or high cost associated with setting up a company in Malaysia? So is there something specific UK SMEs really need to know about either the legislation around setting up a company or a cost that was maybe unexpected and you're like, oh, that was higher than I thought it would be? Anything to watch out for? Dario?
I will start, Jennifer, if you agree. Well, I think as we were discussing before, definitely corporate law in Malaysia is very friendly. So foreign direct investments into Malaysia are not marred by any red tape, as efficient as you would imagine in Asia. So I mentioned before, local director, that's probably the only point, but providers, lawyers can help you by having the local director and the company secretarial firm. And that's it. It's also convenient from a setup perspective in terms of fees. So it's not really expensive to set up and properly maintain compliant a company in Malaysia.
Thank you very much. Richard, can I put you on the spot? Because the answer could be no, there's nothing. But was there anything particular that stuck out to you as a UK company and went, oh, I wasn't expecting that. That was a bit more complicated or costly than I thought? The answer
yeah,
could be no, nothing.
No, it's a good question. I think that certainly some of the, as Dario said, the infrastructure legally and financially is actually quite favourable. I think actually just being able to find a local director for us and find an accountancy firm that could help us. We are a relatively small business, so going to the Big Four, for example, was not on our option list. So we had to sort of through referrals, recommendations, find a local accountant. And then appoint them as a local director as well as a couple of our own directors. I think that took a little bit longer than we thought. It wasn't particularly costly. I think the only other thing is that from a financing point of view, we use AmBank in Malaysia, so a local bank. We've struggled a little bit with integrations into various things that we use in the UK to quite align some of the tools that we use in the UK with some of the localized banking methods that are used in Malaysia. So that's caused a little bit of difficulty, but it's not a cost thing. It's just a bit more of a time issue, is what I would say.
Thank you very much indeed. Jennifer?
Yes, I will totally agree. But again, I would say that if you want to come into Malaysia, you need to understand the market and talk to the right people. Because to set up an entity in Malaysia, depending on your business, there are various opportunities, different legal entities that you can set up. So if speaking to us or even someone who is already set up, you can learn a lot of things that you could have avoided, like having the right in entity, legal entity, you could avoid tax. Not avoid, having a tax free year. So different kind of things. So it's good to check out the market first and discuss. We're happy to support. We do have a list of members who work in accounting, tax, audit, IP rules, various. So we are happy to promote, connect you with our members.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. And obviously, when we mention avoiding tax, we mean managing tax efficiently.
Yes.
And it's good to hear BMCC, BMS, MIDA, etc., working together to help business happen between the UK and Malaysia. Thank you indeed to all our keynote speakers and our expert panel. Maysim Lai, I would now like to invite you to make some comments. Chair Maysim.
Okay, so thank you very much. We have had a very fascinating, useful, and informative contributions and presentations from our 6 speakers: Jennifer Lopez, Tony Collinrich, Robin Stevens, Dario Akonshi, Rashida Osman, and Richard Carrick. We have had wonderful remarks like a fantastic place to start activity, and also sort of sharing experience of making great connections, having access to talent. And we have heard about, I think, more pros than cons of setting up in Malaysia. And also that Malaysia is relatively considerably cheaper than many other ASEAN countries. So that is all sort of very positive and bodes well for those people who are interested in setting up in Malaysia. So I'd like to thank all the speakers. I also like to thank the Zoom team, David Stringer-Lamar for being such a wonderful Zoom chair, Stephanie Cheung, Winnie Xiao, Mariana Cherry, and members of the BMS Trade and Investment team. And also, now just a few words, because some of you are interested in joining the British Malaysian Society. So to join, it's very easy. Just go on our website, and it will take not more than 5 minutes or so to sign up. You can sign up as an individual member, a joint member, a corporate member, large corporate or small corporate. And if you are still studying, you can join as a student member. And what about our events which are coming up? So I'll just run through them very briefly. The first one is later on this month. We're doing an event with Google, and it's all on I Am Remarkable. It's for women and underrepresented groups to learn how to showcase and how to tell other people of what they can do and what their achievements are. On the 20th of May, we have our annual Hari Raya celebrations with lots of culture and lots of interesting participants. We also have our travel and tourism panel discussion on the 26th of May. And then on 17th of June, we have a business event that we're doing jointly with the Malaysian Institute of Management. And it will be covering ASEAN and sort of the development of competitive edge in various ASEAN countries. And then also, in September, just to remind everyone, do join us for the second half of this series, which is all about Malaysian companies, Malaysian SMEs setting up in the UK. I led a delegation to Kuala Lumpur in January 2019. We were supposed to go last year, but because of the pandemic, we had to postpone it, but we're very much hoping to visit Kuala Lumpur next year. But in the meantime, as we're all Zooming, it's very easy to connect with all of you. You don't have to be a Malaysian to join the British Malaysian Society. You don't have to be based in the UK. You can be based anywhere. We even have a member who's half Malaysian who is based in Toronto. So thank you all very, very much indeed for attending this webinar. And I wish all of you who are interested in doing business and forging business relationships with Malaysia all the very best.
Thank you indeed, Chair Maysim Lai. I mean, been a fascinating event today. Lots of excitement for everybody. Thank you for being part of it all. I obviously want to thank very much Stephanie Cheung and Mariana Cherry, who, as Maysim calls us, the Zoom team. So there we are. We're going to close this down. We're going to Zoom off somewhere else. And I hope that you can join us for part 2 in September. And we had some breaking news earlier there. We've got some breaking news now. We will be in KL, etc., with the British Malaysian Society 2022. So Jennifer and team, get saving up your ringgits to take us out for a cup of tea, etc. Thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us, and I wish you a very good evening and a very good afternoon. Thank you and goodbye.